listening to. Are y'all ready? The Friday Night Takeover.
In 3, 2, 1.
Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio.
Yeah, welcome back, Gulf Coast. Welcome back, America. And you are in the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio. Brandon Big B is in the house with me. Brandon Big B, glad you're here.
Man, it is so great to be here. You know I love being in the studio. I've ever told you that?
Yes, yeah, I'm telling you.
Yeah,
it works. It works.
No, it does.
Lots of fireworks going on in here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great show. We're gonna have a great time with Mike Shoesmith. I was talking to him off air, and we'll let him handle his topic.
Yes,
and, But in the second hour, we're gonna it's gonna be a little bit different show today, but I think it's going to touch a lot of people in a very different way.
Yeah,
really
me too. So hang in there with us, folks. Can't wait. But in the meantime, Mike Shoesmith, so good to have you, Michael. Mike Shoesmith is the executive editor of PNN News and Ministry Network, and so Mike, listen. The last time you were here last Friday, which wasn't that just like yesterday? It seems like it. It seems like it. It seems like it. This is just a few hours ago you were here in the studio. But anyway, so we were talking about, now let me just introduce this because I know you've got more to bring to the table. And I've got something to tell you. I'm sure you're aware of it, but just in case you're not, you're going to want to know this. But the bottom line is you have been sounding the alarm for years. And you're loving, you're biblical, you're Christian about it, you're balanced, but you've been sounding the alarm because the mainstream media won't, and our culture won't. But you've been sounding the alarm that homosexuality, particularly among males, over and over and over and over again, we are finding a pattern of, and I'll let you explain the pattern, but there's a destruction in the family, usually having something to do with the father. And you and I have been very careful to say this is not the case all the time, but the pattern is there. What was the guy you had, David Pickup?
Dr. David Pickup.
Dr. David Pickup has been on here?
He has. He's a licensed reparative therapist in a couple of different states, and he stated on air on this program that 98% of males that struggle with homosexuality had a lack of a father figure and or were sexually abused as a child.
Right.
98%.
And you see, and so Mike Shoesmith is one of those lonely voices with Dr. David Pickup and Freedom Friday, trying to warn people and families and dads and moms about this. But Mike, anyway, so you've been doing a lot of research here lately, and so now we can get into the lives. So many people are coming out, you know, and personalities, media people, entertainers. But then when you dig into the research, you hear them sometimes slip up and talk about it. Plus, you can go in, and a lot of this is in print. The research matches up precisely with what you've been preaching for years. These people that their lives are out there and transparent, they all fit the mold. And now, I remember last week we were on, I asked you something about, it would be interesting about Shepard Smith, because he's recently, come out as gay. Of course, most of us knew that, but he's come out. And I asked you last week, do you know anything about his life and his father and his family? I wonder if he fits that mold. And so what did you find out about that?
Well, I'm glad you remember this assignment that you gave me, Carl. I know that you understand that I always take these assignments seriously that you give me. I'm glad you remember this, by the way, because I know you live a busy life, and but this has really morphed into sort of a series that we stumbled upon here, right? Because last week we talked about Milo Yiannopoulos, who described his relationship with his father as terrifying. And before that, we talked about George Michael, who admitted in a GQ article that, yes, his father's absence made him gay. And that's something we've been saying for years now. The sort of like the gay recipe, an abusive or an uninvolved or an absent father and an overprotective, over-involved mother, not always, but oftentimes leads to men reaching out and, when they get into puberty and they launch into manhood, this longing for a father figure, it manifests sexually, because we all want physical contact. We all, for the most part, we all develop sexual desires and needs, and which God has ordained to be fulfilled within the context of a loving man-woman relationship. You know, God is fully aware that we're going to have these needs and wants and desires, but there is design here that has to be taken into consideration. And when does society stop loving men and start saying, okay, go ahead and live this life, we condone it, in fact, we'll pass laws protecting it? That is not love. That is a societal abuse on these men. You know, we have to continue reaching out to them.
Yeah, and the statistics bear that out. I mean, the Center for Disease Control says that the population of gay men is responsible for the proliferation of AIDS and other sexually transmitted disease in our culture, far and above. I mean, multiple times higher than any other demographic. And the suicide, psychological disorder rates among that demographic is unbelievably high, and that's according to the Center for Disease Control, a government organization.
And not only that, but according to the CDC, men having it's what they call MSM. It's their MSM page at cdc.gov. Look it up. MSM stands for men who have sex with men, and according to the CDC, men who have sex with men, that societal group is the only societal group in which cases of AIDS is on the rise every year. Yeah. So if you do the basic math on this, if men would stop having sex with men, AIDS would be in the decline and would eventually go away.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're, you know, in a loving way, we are sort of pointing out all of this stuff to people. We're saying, look, you know, there is help for this. There is a healing for this. There is ways out of this lifestyle into a godly
wholesome
marriage life, you know, and God can heal it and bring you out of it, as we've evidenced in several interviews that I've done and you've done and Brandon's done. The evidence is there. You don't have to live this lifestyle.
Right.
And, so,
and we get this information from authoritative sources like Dr. David Pickup, like the CDC, like Johns Hopkins University, Dr. Paul McGue from Johns Hopkins, and transgenderism and research. They pioneered that. And the suicide rates, the psychological disorder rates are through the roof for that demographic. And a lot of that is tied to the radical homosexual movement, tied to MSM, men having sex with men. And so here we are. I mean, we're destroying manhood in America.
Yeah.
So, but get back to this, and get back to this with Shepard Smith. So what did you discover there? We were just curious, and I understand you found out some things there.
Right. Well, you know, Shepard Smith, the seemingly perpetually passive-aggressive. And do you get the impression watching him on TV that he's just passively aggressive about everything? He's just ready to just explode, right?
Yes.
And according to many reports, actually, he's openly violent. You know, Shepard Smith is the Fox. He's an anchor on Fox News for the one person in the audience that maybe didn't know that. But according to Wikipedia, Smith was born in Holly Springs, Mississippi, son of Dora Ellen Anderson, an English teacher, and David Shepard Smith Sr., a cotton merchant. He attended Marshall Academy, which is a kindergarten to grade 12 private school in Holly Springs, but completed his senior year of high school in Florida, where he, his mother, and brother moved after his parents separated. Okay, so there's the pattern. The pattern remains unbroken here. It doesn't say where in Florida, but according to his bio, Smith signed his first television contract with WJHG-TV in Panama City Beach, Florida, which is exactly 454 miles, so it's about an 8-hour drive. I mean, how often did he see his father, right? So, I mean, and I asked the question last week, is Shepard Smith gay? I mean, has Shepard Smith come out and said, I'm gay, I like dudes? Has he ever come out and said that? Well, according to Salon.com, Smith came out as gay in a sit-down interview with the Huffington Post, during which the anchor denied that his former boss, Roger Ailes, had ever prevented him from coming out publicly. That's not true, said Smith. He was as nice as he could be. I loved him like a father. So always looking for the father figure, daddy issues, etc. Smith indicated that Ailes did not express contempt for homosexuality when he was around him, saying Fox News was a warm work environment under Ailes' reign. Smith went on to say, no, never. He treated me with respect, just respect. So, I mean, Carl, listen to this. If a reporter had come to you and said, hey, did Roger Ailes ever disrespect you as a homosexual man? Would you say, no, he never did? Or would you say, wait a minute, I have never beat my wife, and I'm not a homosexual. So let's just get that on the record right now, right?
Right.
No, I mean, Shepard Smith just sort of went along with it here. He sort of outed himself in this Huffington Post interview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Finish your statement. I was just going to bring something else along these lines, but you go ahead.
Well, more evidence of Smith's sexuality came a few years ago from Gawker. The site reported one night at a Chelsea speakeasy called Bathtub Gin. Smith and a group of friends were downing cocktails with a 49-year-old anchor, his drink half empty, noticed their waitress attending another table. How dare you? He went all diva at this place, Carl. And Gawker goes into great detail, quoting witnesses of the vulgarity which vomited out of Shepard Smith's mouth toward the restaurant staff. By the way, language too foul to be repeated here, Carl. Smith arrived earlier that night with a straight couple and his own regular date, a muscular 6'2", 30-something white male whom Bathtub Gin employees refer to as, quote, his boyfriend, unquote.
Yeah.
Like many other nights, Smith frequents the bar located behind a coffee shop on 9th Avenue about once a week. The anchor's attention fell on his date. According to Minskova and one other source who have seen Smith and his date drink there on multiple occasions, the couple frequently holds hands and rests them in each other's laps under the table.
All right, well, so let's just stop and say that there's no doubt that's where he is. And that he also, from your research, which I asked you to do last week, he also fits the recipe. And again, folks, we're not making fun of this. In fact, it breaks our hearts.
Yeah.
We're not being disparaging. Right. We're just stating the facts that the media won't state and that our culture won't state.
Yeah, I think the broader issue here is look at the breakdown of the family, the breakdown of the home, the breakdown of the man as the leader, as not only the spiritual leader, but starting as the spiritual leader, and then that rolls over into the physical leader of the home and being a male model to your sons, your daughters. I mean, it's the biblical model, and when you go against it, look what happens. We see the breakdown, and not only this, but what about organizations like Planned Parenthood that openly stated this was one of their designs from the beginning, was the breaking down of the family unit. And here, this won't be popular, but it's the truth. Look it up. They started in the inner cities in the black community,
right, to destroy the black population.
If you look pre-civil rights, okay, the black family unit was far and away outnumbered in strength and in stability the white family unit. But there was an agenda. And the experiment started there. And now I think it's 70-something% of, and if I'm wrong on that number, I can be corrected. I'm going off memory, of black babies are born out of wedlock automatically. No father present in the biblical model. We know that 52% of all black pregnancies end in abortion. Thank you, Planned Parenthood.
Which is the highest statistical
of any
demographic of any demographic.
That's right, of any demographic. So, and 1/3 of all pregnancies in this country, no matter your race, end in abortion. 50-something% of first marriages end in divorce.
Right.
On and on and on. See, the model has been set.
Right.
And it's working.
And that's what we're trying to tell folks.
Yeah. And it goes against the very foundation of creation of the world, which was procreation.
Right.
How can you not procreate?
Right.
In a homosexual relationship?
That's right.
It's physically impossible.
That's right. That's right. Nope, the agenda's there. We might be in for a little bit of reversal, but 60 million babies later.
Yeah.
And with the Supreme Court ruling that says we don't know what marriage is anymore.
Right.
And then we just had
example.
8 years of a man in the White House that wore mom jeans and little sissy girl helmets, riding girl bicycles and throwing out baseballs at baseball games like a girl.
Yeah.
I mean, what was the nation supposed to think?
Yeah.
That was our example of manhood.
Yeah.
I mean, good gosh, folks. Good gosh.
Truth has been thrown to the ground.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to bring truth back up here.
Yes, we are.
Anyway, that's why we call it Freedom Friday, because then you'll know the truth, and the truth will what?
Set you free.
Set you free, baby. Hey, you're listening. Freedom Friday, Carl Gallups, Brandon Big B in the house. We're going to take a quick time out, then we're coming back with more. Mike Shoesmith and the rest of the gang at Freedom Friday. Don't go anywhere.
Stuck in traffic and sick of normal radio programming?
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Are you serious?
Turn it up.
Personal file. He was giving them the business.
Say what? Now that's official.
And now, the Commander-in-Chief is back. Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio.
All right, welcome back, Gulf Coast. Welcome back, America. And Mike Shoesmith, let's just get right back to this. So last week, during your segment, I remember you were talking about Milo Yiannopoulos, and you were using him as one more example of this this recipe. You call it the gay recipe, right. Men having sex with men, and the thing that the news won't talk about, the thing that our culture won't talk about, the thing that radio hosts won't talk about. We will. And that is what the CDC is saying, what doctors and psychiatrists are saying, what Johns Hopkins University is saying, what a guy like who's multi-licensed in multiple states and reparative therapy, Dr. David Pickup, is saying. I mean, these people are trying to get a platform to say we're destroying manhood, we're destroying families, we're destroying lives, we're destroying our culture with this celebration of the radical gay movement. And you've been doing a lot of research, and you're discovering that there's this thread that runs through. There are exceptions, but the highest percentage of gay males come from families where they've been abused by a male figure in their life, usually their father, or either sexually or physically or psychologically, and or abandoned by the male figure, and or ignored by the male figure, and or did not receive just regular dad love from the male figure. And almost all of these guys talk about that, and Milo Yiannopoulos said the same thing. And then after we went off the air, that's when he came out and burned himself down talking about basically pedophilia, even though he denied, being a pedophile. But right after that, Mike, Salon.com, which you and I have reported on right here in years past, over and over, they were running articles touting pedophilia from pedophilia authors, people who were writing the articles that were saying, well, I have urges and I have those feelings, I just don't act on it, right. but it's perfectly natural and normal. And now when Milo did what he did, and our culture reacted the way it reacted to him, Salon.com, known for its free thinking, free expressive inclusiveness and their First Amendment rights, they snatched all of those articles down off their site.
Well, it's interesting. I did watch the entire Milo press conference the other day. I don't know if you caught that or not, but it was very interesting, very telling, actually. He was asked by a member of the press, under what visa are you in the United States? He said, and he gave the numbers and letters associated with the visa, and he said it's the visa that's associated with aliens with extraordinary talent. That's the visa he's in America under. And I really think that he also said in the press conference that he was molested as a child, and he said it's not the worst thing in the world that can happen to you. Bankruptcy is worse than being molested as a child. This is what I mean. Now, when I think somebody with this sort of attitude, I think that he needs to just be asked to go home. Why is he even in the United States, and why are so many conservatives still defending him? I mean, this guy has serious issues, serious problems. We're not saying that he molested children, but we don't know that. We're just seeing the tip of the iceberg with this guy. I think there's some serious issues with this guy, and I just think he needs to be sidelined until they can get to the bottom of all this. I want to get to something that Brandon said before the break, actually. I'm not sure if the audience caught it or not, but what Brandon said was that men are the spiritual heads of their family. Yeah. And I like the way he said that, because he said men are the spiritual heads of their family. The Bible says that men are the spiritual, not men are supposed to be, not men should try to be the best spiritual heads. Men are the spiritual heads of the family. Surveys have been done, and if you're a woman who takes your children, you get your kids up on Sunday morning and you dress them up and you take them to church, and the kids are going to church with mom, but as they walk by the couch on Sunday morning, they're seeing dad sitting there with a six-pack watching football because he's not going to church. 80% of those kids will end up not going to church as adults. Why? Because men are the spiritual heads of their families. People ask me all the time, Mike, why do you focus so much on gay men? Why don't you do research on gay women? Why? Because men are the spiritual heads of their family.
Yeah.
As the men go, the women follow. Always, 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 spiritually speaking. So I lay all of the blame for the rise in lesbian relationships in the Western world. I lay that squarely on the feet of the men. If the men would start acting like men, women would start acting like women. And that's why, I hate to oversimplify that problem, but as far as I'm concerned, as far as the Bible is concerned, I think as far as God is concerned, this is all on the feet of the men. You know, Ahab and Jezebel. When that entire story is told, the bottom line for God is, even though Jezebel pulled all the strings, God placed the entire blame for everything Jezebel did squarely on the feet of Ahab. God is going to hold men responsible for all of this, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. We're out of time, Mike, and thank you for that good word. And you're right, same thing in the garden with Adam and Eve. Exact same thing. But in the meantime, folks, that was Mike Shoesmith. We're coming up to the top of the second hour. We'll be back right after this time out.